So for the material for today, I'm gonna move pretty quick just for the sake of being able to upload some videos, or maybe a video. We'll see kind of what happens here. Um, but I think that what we're going to talk about today, which will carry over for our discussion on Wednesday of this week, is looking at the question of like, what is our responsibility? What is our moral responsibility to help others, right? And that's an interesting kind of like on the face of it question, right? I mean, like, I think that a lot of us would probably be like, well, yeah, we should definitely help them, right? We should definitely help others, especially if they're in need, right? And in that regard, sorry, my heater just kicked on, so hopefully you can still kind of hear. I've got a little microphone here. Um, uh, and in philosophy, and when we think of kind of like our duties towards others, there's going to be, again, like with Hume, he said that we should be empathetic. With Kant, that we should act within the categorical imperatives. Like those are our duties towards others. But underlying that is a theme and a thought that I'm sure a lot of us are familiar with, which is the focus on or the connection to what's known as altruism. Okay? Altruism. Altruism. Okay? Which is the belief in or practice of disinterested and selfless concern for, for the well being of others. The belief in or practice of disinterestedness and selfless concern for the well being of others. Meaning, right, if you're acting altruistically, okay, if you're acting altruistically, it means that you're trying to, maybe in some capacity, put others' needs before your own, right? And we've seen this, we know about this, we are familiar with the way like altruism can work and does work, right? The fact that I mean, for the most part, right? A lot of us would say, yeah, it's great to be altruistic, right? The gladly I would try to make somebody's suffering less by taking on their burden, right? Something to that kind of effect, right? That when we act altruistically, right, we're doing so out of the well-being for others, maybe over ourselves. Okay? And so, like a few kind of subtopics with this focus on altruism is selflessness, right? And just in general, like how selfless can we be actually, right? Like that's kind of an interesting question, and I'll say more about that here in a second. What is our duty to others? Okay? And to what extent should we extend ourselves to and for others? Okay? To what extent should we, extend ourselves, morally speaking, care-wise speaking, to and for others? Especially if that means that like we sacrifice something for ourselves, right? And again, there's a whole host of examples that you can kind of start to plug in here about selflessness, about altruism, about how to maybe navigate some of that space. But before we navigate some of that space, I also want to introduce, I would say, a more pesky pushback on altruism, because I think a lot of us would say pretty quickly and be like, yeah, it's great to be altruistic, right? That's a noble desire. It's something that we should definitely seek out and we should definitely aim for, is being altruistic. Okay, there is. It's not necessarily an alternative perspective, but there is a perspective that's pushing back against that selflessness, about pushing back against that altruism. And you find this more so maybe in psychology rather than philosophy, but there's still underpinnings here that work. And that's this focus on what's called psychological egoism. Okay? Psychological egoism. egoism. Okay? And psychological egoism is the observation, I think fairly convincingly, is the observation that all of our behaviors are motivated by self-interest. Okay? In some regard or another, in some capacity, in some way, all of our behaviors are motivated by self-interest. Okay? Even when we think we're being altruistic, even when we donate some time, some money, some effort to an organization, usually we're doing so and we get a good feeling out of that. So that's still self-interested. me making this video right now, yes, there's other things that I would like to be doing, but I am self-interested in trying to offer some material, right, for the class. It's of my own interest, both as a human and as a profession, right? Like I am, motivated by self-interest to make this video in some capacity or another. You're also arguably, right, motivated by self-interest to watch this video, whether or not it's exciting or boring or terrible, right? You're watching it because you probably want to learn the material. You probably think it'll help pay off for a grade, yada yada yada, right? So it's still within your self-interest to watch this video. So psychological egoism claims, or at least is making a claim, that every action or behavior is motivated by self-interest, even when we think we are being selfless or altruistic, right? We're still acting within our own self-interest. So, and this is kind of a strange phrased question here, but like, can we never not act within our own self-interest? Can we never not act within our own self-interest? Or phrased differently, can we ever escape our own self-interest? Right? And arguably that question might be no, right? Even if it is the case that, we see somebody in grave peril, right? And we're like, oh my gosh, if I go into that fire, if I go into that messy situation, right? It's still within your self-interest to do so, even if it is maybe like, survivally not the wisest of decisions. But still, we make these decisions, right, based off of our own self-interest. So I'm going to pause there, upload this, and then the next video will be about the short little article from Ayn Rand.